I didn't break the planet. It was this way when I found it, all right?
Everybody laughed when I first said I wanted to be a comedian. Well, they're not laughing now, are they?
You know why it's laminated, don't you? To catch the tears of joy.
It's a Celtic phoenix. People are thankfully being stupid again.
Welcome to Gurus of Comedy.
With your host, Dave Keeshan.
And welcome to Gurus of Comedy. I'm your host, Dave Keeshan, and today I'm with an old friend of mine, John Vaughan. John and I go way back from days of the Cork Science Fiction Society / AKA Star Trek Club.
We were young nerds together.
We're young and we're still nerds to this very day.
I'm still young. I don't know about you.
No. You obviously have some picture up in your attic there, John. I don't know what's going on there.
I constantly listen to Alphaville's Forever Young.
Right. You and Tom Cruise are sharing notes on, how to stay forever young.
Yeah, but he sold his soul to the devil. That's quite obvious.
So, John went on to do many great things. Last I saw you before I went to college, you were off to a place called New York City.
It was mighty. It was amazing.
To study directoring. Yeah. Directoring, is that a word? It is now.
Yeah, directing, yeah, it is now.
It is now. And John's gone on to become an award-winning screenwriter and director of some short films. And you have the claim to fame that you were the only person ever to make a hardcore sci-fi pilot for RT television called Victory.
Yeah, that's true.
That is
true. That's my career. That's it, yeah.
But we are here today to talk about comedy in the dark. We're kind of in a strange time now. Everyone's been locked at home. I suppose everyone's kind of thinking about ways to get through the dark times. We're going to cover comedy in the dark, which is the topic you came up with.
Yep. Well, my attitude is that I've noticed this over the years. That it first came up a couple of years ago. I was at a science fiction convention in Dublin. We had just shown my latest film, My Dad. This was about 2008. And there was a Finnish gentleman there. He's a very nice guy. And he came up to me afterwards and he looked at me and he said, "John, you are full of laughter and jokes." And I went, "Yes, but behind it all, there lies a dark soul of torture." And that was a compliment.
Yeah, well, I was had your number straight up, didn't I?
Well, he did, but that is it's a good point. A lot of comedy, if you look at film, cinema, theatre, the best comedy isn't the funny ha-ha. It's the funny dark, as in the more serious films actually have jokes and a sense of humour that last longer than many of the biggest comedies we've seen in the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm. I felt that way a bit. Was it 12 Years a Slave? Well, that movie, it just from the outset, like the title kind of makes you kind of a bit worried about it.
Yeah,
I do like 2.5 hours of some guy just being whipped constantly in agony, and it wasn't. And I was like, whew, that was a relief.
Yeah, no, it was. Well, that's not exactly my example. I wouldn't use 12 Years a Slave as example, but you have to have a sense of humor. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed this, Alec. I mean, we were discussing this earlier this week when you describe The Hangover, one of the most popular movies ever in comedy in the last 20 years. Mm-hmm. And Classic. You have two ways to look at it. 4 guys go on a series of hilarious adventures, and you have the biggest selling comedy blockbuster of 2008. Mm-hmm. Or 4 guys accidentally go on a drug-filled drink and drugs binge, leave their friend in danger of being exposed to death, and as they desperately try to get the time back to save his life, they look back over their previous night, which includes encounters with convicted rapists, police brutality, drug dealers. You're kind of going, it's not funny. It's just how you look at things.
I've said this to you before, like great comedy is in the setup of the tension,
yeah,
and it's burst into tension, and anything like that, anything that's dodgy or questionable, be it convicted rapists, losing friends through dehydration and so on. That's a great way to ratchet up the tension. At the very end, boop, maybe it's
well, I remember.
I think it's cheating. It's kind of easy to set up the tension where, what's the harder thing to kind of sit there in a blank room with that quiet tension, something's going on, and just let it kind of build and see what happens then.
Well, see, tension, I think laughter comes in horror and serious drama to relieve tension. I mean, when we were in our late teens, early 20s, I remember you being able to do a superb impersonation of Sean Connery in The Hunt for October.
Ah, yes, of course. It's a great day, comrades. We sail into history.
Yes, but if you look at this carefully, if you remember, there are two great scenes in it. Like, it's a political thriller. They have to get the sub before the sub is sunk. You have Sam Neill talk about raising rabbits in Montana, and you have don't shoot the nuclear weapons. And you're going, there, that's the laugh. That's to relieve the tension. One of my films I made years ago, I don't know.
The correct line is, some things in here don't react too well to bullets.
Yes, exactly. You're going, yeah, it's a laugh, but it's a tense thriller. And it's that tension that builds up. The audience needs to laugh. Mm-hmm. I wrote a war drama years ago called Valour, which is available on YouTube if anyone wants to see it. Shameless plug. There's a scene in it where the cowardly soldier... Now, I had written this. It's a serious war drama. And I put in one joke. It's a simple moment to make the audience laugh. But in it, one of the characters kills everybody else because he can't be caught for cowardice. And I was not expecting this. There's a moment where he's just killed a German prisoner, played by me.
Exemplary work.
Thank you. He's just killed him. He's, this is how we're going to get away with it. And he's telling the wounded soldier. And the wounded soldier says, I won't tell anyone, Byrne, ever. Promise. Mm-hmm. And I am not joking you. There's this moment where Dave Duffy, he hears this, and in his head, he's thinking, and you know what he's thinking. You're thinking, oh, God, I've got to kill him because he's a witness. Mm-hmm. I have never seen, every single time we have shown that film in the cinema, everyone bursts into laughter at that face. It's a massive tension breaker. This moment, the audience just go, I've heard people in the audience going, you fucking idiot, keep your mouth shut. Everyone bursts into laughter at that moment. He gets up and he turns around and he smiles and he says, I know you won't. And you know he's going to kill him. And the face, everyone immediately stopped laughing because they go, oh shit, he's going to kill him. Mm-hmm. But for that moment, he's thinking in his face. And it's a serious moment. I wrote it as a serious moment. Everyone, I have never seen an audience not break down in this tension-released laugh. It's a weird moment. It's a kick to see it happen when everyone just laughs, and it's a nervous laugh. It's not a...
But what does it look, though? Is it the stare-to-camera look? Is that kind of...
No, he looks off-screen, and you know what he's thinking. I have to kill him. Mm-hmm. And it's a lovely scene, but it's just, I was not expecting every single audience who have ever seen it live, they just burst into laughter at his look. And they're all saying the same thing. And I've heard this 100 times. People going, fucking idiot, keep your mouth shut. They're laughing they know what's coming next. Mm-hmm. And that laugh is a release because the next scene is horrific. Everyone stopped laughing almost. But it's just this unexpected, well, wait a second, that isn't funny. Why are you all laughing? Oh, tension release. I've noticed it over the years. People laugh at things because they need to release tension. It's not that they actually find it funny, ha-ha. It's like years ago, I went to see Man Bites Dog when I was in college. Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen that film?
I have not.
It's a film about serial killer and a documentary crew following. It's from Belgium and it's brilliant.
Okay.
It's absolutely brilliant. But I went to see it in the Old Lighthouse Cinema in Dublin with one of my college classmates. Now, it's a comedy drama about a serial killer who kills people, okay? It's very funny at the start, but there are moments that are shocking. And the idea is, like at one point, he kills a family. He kills an entire family, down to the 3-year-old child, because the 3-year-old has seen him kill his parents. His parents die at the hands of the serial killer. And the film crew realize, we let this happen. And they're horrified. My classmate couldn't stop laughing through the whole thing. And everyone in the cinema was looking, going, what's wrong with him? And as I said, I'm never going to the dark room with him again, because that's just weird. He couldn't stop laughing. Even the bits that were deliberately not funny was just laughing his head off. And you're kind of going, ooh, this is a good test to see who's a psychopath, isn't it?
This friend of yours didn't turn out to be a serial killer himself.
No. He's all right. But like you're going, can you stop laughing? It's not funny. But it also shows after, like he was affected by it. He was saying that was, and I realized, he's laughing because he was so uncomfortable. Mm. He just kept laughing to try and release tension. And I've noticed that with comedy. If you go for the straight comedy films, a lot of them date. But when a drama does it, 30 years later, it can still be like, again, I don't know if you've ever seen Howard Hawks' The Thing from Another World.
No.
The black and white version, and it's very straight. No, it's a lovely film. It was done as a horror movie, but it's become a science fiction classic. It's not scary anymore. Not when you have lines like, "You mean it's an intelligent carrot?" That's a genuine line. It is. It's okay, but it was done in the 40s. But Howard Hawks and almost everyone in it. This is just after the Second World War, and there's just this lovely moment where someone said they're handing out guns to stop this thing. Right? And everyone involved in the making of this film actually fought in the Second World War. This is 48, 49. Okay? And I don't even know to this day who came up with the line. They're handing out guns and they're saying to the crew, "Do you think you can handle it?" One of the guys doesn't even look at the camera and goes, "Gee, I don't know. I did fight in World War II. And it's the most beautiful bit of sarcasm. Because you're giving a gun to a soldier. Of course he knows how to handle it. But it's done so straight that today that line is still funny. Whereas comedies from that time, they're not funny at all.
Right.
You know?
Well, I think comedy sensibilities, like you mentioned, like one of the darker shows that kind of come through was actually, I call it the dual combo, the day-to-day / on the air. So the on the air was the radio show that had Chris Morris, but also introduced Alan Partridge. That's how he started. But then they had the TV show version of it called the day-to-day. Yeah. And in the very first episode, they had this thing called Attitudes Nights, where they kind of were meant to be looking back at segments that were done on BBC Two back in the 50s, 60s and 70s. But they made these fake inserts of themselves doing the stuff. So there was something from the last live hanging from the 50s. 60s was some Steve Coogan doing some Beatlesy kind of thing, and in the 70s they had like the neighbour next door who just happened to be Indian looking for a cup of sugar, but the English couple are just so racist to the point of being, silly racist, but it's like, oh well, that's the way it used to be back in the day. We used to get away with it. You can't do it now.
You've just reminded me of that attitude tonight, that moment where the cover of The Hanging. It's a good drop. It's a good drop. You're going, oh my God. No, I think as well.
Oh, yeah, they again just like play it out at the end, And what are you saying? Fancy lady.
But it's a good drop. It's a good drop. And everyone's applauding. Oh, very well done. And you're going, oh, God. But it is true. Day to day and on the hour, I don't know if you'd actually call them comedies. I would call them. No, they're funny. They're really funny. But I would call them satire. I'd call them a commentary.
Yeah, well, I think what was bizarre is the Day to Day came out during the tenure of George Bush Sr.
Yeah.
And I just happened to watch it, 12 years later when George Bush Jr. was president. And with the exception of mentioning Thatcher, I don't think that thing dated at all.
No, it doesn't. That's what I'm saying. Because it's so dark, it's not funny, haha, as in the time the Day to Day was out, Jim Davidson was a star of BBC comedy. Mm-hmm. You cannot play Jim Davidson stuff today.
No. It's
terrible. But
to be fair, like that's on TV. He still sells out shows. Him and Chubby Brown, they still kind of have careers. They're just maybe not as big as they used to, but they hadn't lost their careers either.
Yeah, no, but his comedy has dated. Day to Day didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you're looking at, there are certain comedies from even the 90s or the late. Okay, have you ever watched? And I'll say this to any of your listeners: if you get a chance, go on your Skybox and watch Forces TV.
I don't even think I heard of this one.
Forces TV, it's for the British Army. It's up around 192. They show all these old classic drama series, but they also show stuff like Never the Twain. Mm-hmm. Just looking at it going, oh, I remember laughing at this when I was 8. Mm-hmm. Why did I laugh at this when I was 8? Because it isn't funny. It just, it's just Donald Sinden doing a voice and going, good Lord, basically, here's the comedy of the week. And you're going, oh my God, it's awful.
Well, yeah, well, I suppose, your humor matures. I find that a lot of people, Monty Python was like their entry into comedy because it's so kind of broad and anarchical and it's just very easy to get. But after a while, you just kind of, it's sort of, I want more. And I think those guys, everyone wants like the Pythons to reform. It's like, why would you want to do that? It's just, you're not even writing new stuff, and the stuff you're writing, you're probably moved on from. And, it's like a greatest hits. It's like being a cover band of your own band.
Yeah, it's like, it's amazing how because I'll tell you something. A guy who is still a genius, I will guarantee you, people who are listening to this podcast, they will go, what? Is Benny Hill from the 1960s?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen Benny Hill's stuff from the 1960s before he went to ITV?
No.
He's comedic genius. Before he went, they sort of went, slapping bald people and going, ooh, cheeky comedy. The guy today, even today, there is a clip of him, a documentary on the first British musical movie of the 20s, and they could never figure out why it failed. And all it is Benny Hill in the 20s, in a black and white film, singing into a microphone. And every time he moves away from the microphone, the sound fades away, and he comes back. And he goes, and it's 3 minutes of comedy gold. It never dated.
I feel that way a bit like Rowan Atkinson. So Rowan Atkinson is genius in creating Mr. Bean. Not because Mr. Bean is so funny, and I think he is, some people might vary on that, but it was, I think, custom designed to be sold to anywhere on the planet. Because he sells that into China, South America, and it doesn't even have to be edited. Maybe the credits, and that's it. It's ready to go. And I think Benny Hill was like that, but which is ironic because the Rowan Atkinson I like is the older stuff. I know he didn't write Blackadder, but that kind of wordy, verby, play with words, Baldric, it's like a ferret caught in a ferret making factory, those kind of things that Blackadder were famous for. And he was kind of famous for delivering lines like that, which seemed to be the absolute antithesis of what Mr. Bean is.
Yeah, but see, Blackadder, even today, and I will say this, Ben Elton was at the top of his game when he was writing Blackadder.
Mm-hmm.
And again, talking about Benny Hill, it was actually Ben Elton who got Benny Hill's career ruined because the 80s, you couldn't do that anymore. You're looking at Ben Elton today, and Ben Elton's stuff after Blackadder is not very good. It's dated as well. But that last episode of Blackadder isn't a comedy. It's just affecting. You're going,
oh, but that does deserve to be taken out into a different realm entirely. Just the way it finishes. And like the setup for so long kind of probably, if you just played that one episode on its own, it was effective. But like having seen these guys for 6 episodes and then seeing the last one.
Yeah. You're looking at it going, again, that is...
Just for the listeners who haven't seen it, the episode ends in World War One with everybody going over the top and dying. And it just slowly pulls away from the battlefield as the battlefield turns into a field of poppies that it is today.
And what happened there as well was that the BBC was such a cheap production that when they went over the top, they realised they had 6 feet of battlefield. And the director...
Did they not do a joke about that? What is this is the land we've captured today. It's like, okay, a table full of it. What's the scale? 1 to 1?
Yeah, but it was literally, they had 6 feet of set. And they were going, what are we going to do? Because when they go over the top, they have to make it, and they said, so they slowed it down.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing that, they actually made this moment incredibly poignant.
Mm-hmm.
But realised that they slowed it down because they only had 6 feet of set. It wasn't poetry. It was like, this is the only way to make it last, lads. Because if they go over at normal speed, it looked ridiculous.
Right. Wasn't it that they had like that? Did you ever see, was it Garth Marenghi's Dark Place? And
yes.
Behind the scenes, and like any time we could do it in slow motion, we did. It meant we had to film a lot less.
Marenghi's Dark Place is another perfect example of this, because Garth Marenghi's Dark Place is hilarious. I still think it's hilarious, especially if you grew up on shows like, oh Jesus, what were the 2 cops? The American cops.
Starsky and Hutch?
No, not Starsky and Hutch. British cop.
Cagney and Lacey.
No, Jesus, it'll come to me. Dempsey and Makepeace.
Dempsey and Makepeace, okay.
It was so 80s. And it's such a parody of Dempsey and Makepeace and dramas like it. But then they start talking about like how the actress disappeared. And you're going, what? This is the last time. I think the classic, the producer saying, we made 74 episodes. And then I found out you have to be commissioned.
No, I like the way Matthew Berry, who's big now, he's in lots of stuff, but back then he wasn't quite well known. But he played as Rick Sanchez. But his own voice would lose sync with himself. That even when he was talking on his own, it would somehow lose sync.
And I'd remember, don't worry, I've got your back, big boy. And you're going, this is awful. But it played perfectly to the awfulness of the 80s. But again, when they went to these weird documentary behind the making bit, it got very dark. It went sort of like, and we never saw her again. What? The lead actress is missing? What? And it's dark, and but again, as I say, I mean, it's looking for. You were discussing Joker, the movie Joker, a few weeks ago, one of your episodes.
Oh, was it? Was our last one?
Yeah. That's not a funny film.
Yeah.
It's not funny, haha, but it works. But it's incredibly dark.
Well, it definitely is building to something. You're just like, what's he going to do? Where's he going to go? How far can they push this guy? Can they push him further? Yes, they can. And then he just kind of snaps into becoming the Joker. Yeah,
but it's dark. And what happened was, I remember going to the cinema to see it, and this woman brought her 13-year-old son and her 12-year-old. I just saw the manager going, yeah, it's not that kind of a film. You really can't bring them.
But I always felt like Joker has a very mixed history of like being brought into media, because I still think without a doubt the best example of Batman ever was the animated series they made in the 90s. Just the look, the style, the characterizations were fantastic. And it still holds up. I mean, it was done that kind of dark deco style that it can play today and look exactly the same, and didn't have anything that kind of dated it too much. But the Joker in that, when people get caught with the spray, they go unconscious, like laughing,
Yeah.
Whereas like in the comic books, they die. It's like, well, he's killing people. He kills people. That's that's where that character does. And they said, well, we want a really cool look, but how do you make it okay for kids? So like I have this sort of problem. Like I've children now, and you look out at kind of what kids play at. Okay, so when they do fancy dress, none of them are dressing up in Nazis, right?
Yeah.
Yet, but they do dress up as pirates. And you think about, well, pirates were pretty fucking dodgy people. Like they were intercepting ships on the high seas and killing anybody on board and taking whatever they found, or taking people capture and selling them into slavery. That's not, I don't know, the principles I necessarily want children to be kind of learn into. But you put 250 years on it, and like, look at him, he's dressed up as a pirate.
This is a perfect example. I got diverted there, but a perfect example is the third Pirates of the Caribbean film, which A, is rubbish.
Well, okay.
Right? 2, is not funny. Have you seen it?
I probably have, but I literally went in one and out the other.
It starts with the hanging of children.
Right.
They're hanging kids. And you're thinking, hang on, is this a Disney picture? Well, they're hanging the boys and girls because they were pirates. And you're going, that kid's 12. You're going, okay, that's a gigantic misfire. That movie's a misfire. But the reason why I brought up Joker was, I heard you talking about it, one of the best versions, and I don't know if you've ever heard it, was BBC's Nightfall.
I did. Who did they get to do Joker in that?
Kerry Shale. And he's unhinged. Mm-hmm. And he's very funny in it, but of all, I mean, they go on about Mark Hamill, Jack Nicholson, Kerry Shale, his voice is dripping with blood.
Right.
He's actually playing the Joker as totally insane. Again, and he's sort of like the comedy relief in Dirk Maggs's, like when he's on, he's funny, but he's a psycho. He's completely psychotic. And to me, he's like, okay, this isn't fun. This is scary. And yet he's still very, very funny. It's hard to judge comedy with drama and ordinary comedy because comedy dates. But like I said,
but what's the tragedy plus time equals comedy?
That's true. That is very true. Yes,
but like I've taken that equation, and it's like no, comedy minus time does not get tragedy though.
Yeah, that's very true. That is because no, it is because you have to. You have to have some space. Like, I mean, last week, I don't know if you watch Rick and Morty.
I haven't got into it yet. I just haven't had the time. But it looks like it's blowing up the world.
They caused controversy last week because they attack an alien world and there's a Twin Towers.
Okay.
And they look at the camera and they go, well, we didn't do a 9/11 joke. And then they fly over a naval fleet and they go, but we can do a Pearl Harbor. They actually got people complaining on the net last week because they mocked 9/11. No, they didn't. They said they weren't going to do a 9/11 joke. They did a Pearl Harbor joke, and people were actually giving out about the tastelessness of the Pearl Harbor joke. And you're kind of going, that was 80 years.
I feel a bit mixed about that one because, yeah, semantically they didn't. But they did. They brought it up into the conscious enough to be commenting on it. And I feel like this way about Chris Morris.
Yeah.
Chris Morris, after The Day Today, did his own show called Brass Eye.
Yeah.
And he did 6 episodes of that kind of new style he did where he actually went up to the famous people, pre-Ali G to Ali G,
Yeah.
Kind of, I think it got people to come up against a drug called cake, and an elephant whose trunk has got stuck up its own anus. Like Paul Daniels was dragged into that one. But then that was very successful. Then he came back and he did a special on child pedophilia. But it wasn't. It was actually about how media covers child pedophilia. And the subtlety there was actually very important, because everyone kind of came out and said, it's absolute disgrace. How dare you cover that? And said, did you see it? I didn't see it myself, but I think it's a disgrace. And it's like, that's the point. You know, that was the whole point about the show, that people are kind of not being aware.
I remember him getting into deep trouble over that one. And what I found hilarious, and this is what I mean about laughing in dark times, was he did that episode of Brass Eye in response to the pedophilia scare that was happening in England that year. And I just remember going, good God, people have no sense of irony, because there was a moment, the press had whipped up this, there are pedophiles everywhere, to the point that a crowd, a lynch mob, burnt down a doctor's office in Wales because she was a pediatrician. And it had pedia on her door, so she must be a pedophile.
Oh, hey, we live in an age during this lockdown where people are burning down 5G towers because they think it transmits the coronavirus.
I know, but...
That's arguably worse.
Yeah, but Mars basically pointed this out, and then oh, dare you say we're stupid, and tore him apart, and you're going, he had a point.
He absolutely did. I thought it was amazing. And maybe I should say some of this for Chris Mars' podcast, because he is amazing.
Yeah.
His movie he brought out, actually, he just brought out a movie recently I don't think was quite as successful, but he brought out one, was it going on 8 or 9 years now? Four Lions.
Yeah.
About terrorism. And I heard he was making this, and I was like, no way, can't do it. Just cannot make terrorism funny. Having grown up in Ireland and having the background of terrorism in the north for so long, I just kind of go, nah, there's no way that can be made funny. And then he made it, and it was just hilarious. Just not funny jokes here and there, just beginning to end funny, and I just couldn't believe it. And you know, even bits you don't think could be made funny, like a guy blowing up, just the timing of it, you know. And maybe they've set up the guy so it's kind of a bit fumbly or a bit kind of clumsy, and when it happens, it's just like boom, you just don't see it coming. And you kind of go, is there something wrong with me that I'm laughing at it? But it's just he just knows how to hit that nerve just right.
Again, I remember when that was released, he got huge acclaim from film festivals and critics in the States. Got torn apart by the tabloid press in England. How dare you glamorize terror? He's not. It's satire. It's a satire on the stupidity. Oh dear God. I remember he was destroyed by that. As I was saying, again, another...
Though I think he would relish that in some way, because, again, I think it's the same thing. You're not paying attention. You're fixating on the clutching my pearls and not really kind of addressing the subtlety. And that's exactly where he was. Yeah,
no, absolutely. I mean, another bunch who do it, who kind of, I won't say took up the reins, but they followed through, were Mitchell and Webb. Because their stuff, Jesus, that's dark.
Well, they have one now that they put up that now seems to be super timely. So you put me on to it. I hadn't actually seen it at the time. It was the Remain Indoors segment.
You're watching the British Emergency Broadcasting System. The estimated date is March or November 2013. It's 19 hours. So now, as usual, it's time for the quiz broadcast.
Hello, good evening, and remain indoors. This is the quiz broadcast, coming to you every Friday, the same day as your food parcels. So chow down on a protein fudge, take whatever injections are recommended in your sector, and prepare to enjoy the show. Well, it's between 600 and 750 days since the event, but that hasn't stopped those of us that survive from enjoying ourselves. So let's remain indoors and say hello to our contestants. Hi there. Hello. Hey. That's the spirit, unknown male 282. So let's get on with the game. First round, things. Fingers on buzzers. What is believed to be the name of this pre-event leader?
Heston Blumenthal?
Correct. Multiple choice. Which of Shakespeare's 3 plays is now thought to be prophetic of the event? Is it A. Pericles, B. Cymbeline, or C. Boeing Boeing?
Is it a trick question?
It is. Oh dear, some horrible memory from the event, no doubt.
We all get them.
Yes, indeed. By night, we all get them. Please, everyone, remain indoors. So while Sheila's being electrocured, let's see what Peter's won. That's right. It's fuel.
So that was done in, was it 2006, 2007? The video was posted in 2009. He's described in 2013. And now we're living in something like it in 2020.
And if you take the laugh track off Remain Indoors, Remain Indoors it's a Beckett play. It's not funny. It's funny when it's on and it's funny to watch, but you can watch that separately. And if you took the laughter track off it, it's worthy of Samuel Beckett. Especially the final episode in which you're going, what's going? Everyone's dead. It's actually moving and it's funny and it's actually genuinely scary. They did another one. I don't know if you ever saw the Alien Invasion. What's your opinion?
I haven't seen that one.
Aliens attack London and they're covering it on the news. And what they start doing is they start taking comments from viewers. And then you can see alien warships burning London down the background, and you're going, you can say what you like about these alien invaders, but they know how to get the job done.
I find like the punditry problem of like, but there's so many TV channels, there's so much airtime that you just have to fill it. It's like I call it the curse of cycle commentary.
Yeah.
Those guys that cover, they just have to fill it up, and they become experts on French churches and scenery because it's so much time to fill in, and if you're quiet, you get fired. So the people who get to keep those jobs are brilliant at just that mindless waffle.
There was another brilliant one in their last season because they were getting big with their Channel 4 series, Peep Show.
Mm-hmm.
They did a sketch where Sherlock Holmes has Alzheimer's.
Okay.
And you're looking at it going, okay, that's not funny, guys. It's deeply sad. It's like, what the heck? It's depressing and it's moving. And you're kind of going, that's not comedy. That's just, it's poetry. If it sounds daft, it's actual poetry. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah, it's...
You know what, like, I've just been thinking about this now since you brought it up. You know what's something that needs a revisit? The Running Man. The Running Man
is one of the best satires on television ever done.
It was one of his lesser known movies. There's a bit in the movie now where people are fighting for their lives and then he decides to run off, but they have to finish the show. So they fake his death by putting his face on someone else who they actually kill. And it's like, we actually live in that world now. We got Trump in the White House, who seems like your man Killian. Like, he's not a million miles away from Killian. He's just obsessed. Like, he was on The Apprentice. He's obsessed with numbers, like viewer numbers. And we can deep fake images onto stuff and make things look like that. Like, I think that movie has aged quite well, unlike a lot of the other ones, unlike Red Heat.
Yeah. Oh, well, that film is actually, I hate to say it to you, but certain, and I may get mocked for this, certain Schwarzenegger films of the 80s had a biting satire.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of them. That scene where you win the Running Man game. What? And some of the shows were brilliant, like Climbing for Money. I'm just going, do you just get savaged by dogs? Another show that was brilliant, very rarely seen, was, I believe it was called The Newsroom. It was Canadian.
Okay.
And it was about this newsroom set in a Canadian TV show. And it was successful in Canada. RTE, for some reason, were showing it. And it was just basically this really dark show. And in one episode, a nuclear reactor is going to go down. And they do it seriously. And there's this lovely scene where they're telling the guy who does the music for the news bits, I need death. I need destruction. I need imminent doom. And he looks at him going, are you not telling me something? No, everything's fine. And he's going, why am I writing this?
I think comes back to the Day-to-Day. One of my favourite episodes is the one where they start their own war. Because it's a lot better to cover. Because it's a lot easier. War. And it's like he starts the war. He does.
Yeah, he goes, is it war? Yes. Is it war? I suppose. It's war. And they had the studio set up ready to go.
And you look at, because America now has been in war in Afghanistan for like 15 years, they don't need it to set it off as much. But yeah, just the kind of, when everything is good and quiet, there's not much to cover.
Yeah.
We're looking for anything. If it bleeds, it leads. And if it doesn't bleed, kick it.
No, I love the way the set moves. All of a sudden they're going, is it war? And all of a sudden it turns into the war desk. And you're going, they had the entire, and you're going, these people are monsters. They're monsters.
But that was obviously done for satire. But you kind of go and look at some of the other guys and their, rotating graphics. It's like, they must have had this ready. It's like if someone dies, the obituary is sitting there ready to go. Someone's job, it's like a kind of a new grad kind of job, is to write obituaries so people haven't died yet. So it's ready to go when they do.
But even 30 Rock, I don't know if you watch 30 Rock, some of their episodes are brilliant. Like Tracy Jordan dies. No, it's a tape of your obituary. I'm dead. No, Tracy, you're not dead. It's just your obituary.
It feels like he was lifted a bit from Dougal, from Father's Head. And the bit where he goes to bed, they turn off the light and he turns the light back on. He thinks it's the morning. It's like, no.
Yeah, even 30 Rock, which is a very funny show. It goes dark places like Kenneth and his soul. Damn you, Jacob. Not yet. And you realize Kenneth's immortal. There are things even in 30 Rock. And that's what I mean. Straight comedy, like I said, if you look now, and I will say this to any of your listeners, you think back, what are the great comedy shows today? They are not the straight up Terry and Junes from the 1970s. They're not the variety shows of the 80s or the sitcoms of the early 90s. They're the stuff that's dark, that is slightly peeling off to the left. Like, why is Alan Partridge, why has he stayed for 20 years in the public psyche?
I think he was created before his time. He's become more and more, like, he starts off as a, anodyne sports presenter who doesn't know anything about sports and can't tell the difference between jockeys and children. But his more recent stuff is, as an aging man facing career prospects of being off the...
Have you watched his latest series?
Yes.
The one on the BBC? Yeah. The one where the episode where he wants the job. What he does is he reveals the previous presenter was a pedophile. And he does it, and everyone else is praising him because he's the only one who didn't do it. He's able to capitalize, and it is 20 minutes of the most sinister political comedy ever. But you said he was a good man. Well, that was before I knew. But the genius one was the last episode where he got IRA songs sung on television.
Yeah, well, that was subversive because a lot of people in England had no idea what that was.
And they said, "What did you do?" He said, "Because I wanted to." He wanted. He had himself seeing them in Behind the Wire, and the BBC went, "Yeah, that'll be fine." And it's only afterwards that they realised,
what?
Do you know the meaning of this song? That's why I think Steve Coogan has to be said. Like, when it comes to subversive comedy, and dark comedy, he is one of the best.
He is now that he's back, because I saw him live in Sydney performing, and he brought out his Paul and Pauline Calf characters.
Yeah.
Now, he created them when he was a young man, broke student, and that's what those characters are, kind of that world. Since then, he's gone on to be a successful movie guy, millionaire, drives sports cars. Can you write those characters anymore if you kind of not anywhere near that world? Like, I just didn't feel like he was close to that world enough anymore to effectively write. Yeah. Like, he could perform maybe existing work, but he couldn't really write the new stuff.
Well, Paul and Pauline Calf, could you even do them anymore?
I don't know. Like, one of the ones that you kind of remind me of things at age is like, even one of the biggest sitcoms ever, Friends, is getting kind of up against cancel culture, and they were sort of saying, look, it came out and it was homophobic and it was fat shaming and it was all that sort of stuff, and they're kind of, and from maybe the current lens of now, you couldn't even make that anymore. But they said, look, when we did it, when we had like Ross' wife leave him because she was a lesbian and she wanted to live with her lover, that was like unheard of back then. Do you even mention it? So then they were future grasping, and now they're kind of being looked at as they're antiquated.
Yeah, but see, this is, and I don't want to come across as a fogey, shall we say, but there is an awful lot of I'm offended culture out there. Mm-hmm. As in, okay, have a sense of humor. It's not meant to hurt anyone, but more and more, it's like everything that's the point of comedy. Comedy is supposed to offend and make you think. Mm-hmm. Today, there's an awful lot of oh, we can't have this. Why? Because I'm offended. So
Graham Lenihan, who's gotten himself in a lot of trouble recently, he's gone to war with the trans community, and he's kind of gotten himself in a lot of trouble. And I'm not going to comment one way or the other. I think he's looking for a fight. But he sort of says, like a lot of comedians, the joke that will destroy you, to get you cancelled, you've probably written already.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you an example about myself, and I don't want to be, again, hard, but when I made Valour was a World War I film, which was based on an actual event. Mm-hmm. The Battle of Neuve Chapelle, where the Irish regiments had horrific casualties. But if the British had, they made so much damage to the German lines in 1915 that if the British had enough men to reinforce the attack they'd made, the war would have been over in 6 weeks because they had punched a hole in the line. Again, without being serious, it is the reason why poison gas was introduced into the war. Because the Germans went, we have no men to fill the line, let's use poison gas. Mm-hmm. I won't say which film festival it was, but we went to a film festival and we came out. It was fine. My sister-in-law had come along to see the movie on the big screen and she'd forgotten something. So my wife went back in. She came out. She was red with fury. I was going, what's going on? She said, I'll tell you later. And what had happened was she'd gone in to get her bag and she had heard the judges arguing over my film. She was angry with rage for me. And I'm going, well, what happened? They had agreed, everyone had agreed on the judging panel that Valour should take Best Picture. It wasn't going to get it because it was showing Irishmen fighting for the British Army. And I went, what? Oh, okay. And this had been said to me before. People were not going to recognize it because, well, that didn't happen. Yes, it did. It did happen. Again, the more things change, the more things stay the same. That's what I mean about comedy. If you look at comedies from the 50s, the 60s, and 70s, the ordinary British sitcom, attitudes have changed so much. They're anarchic. They don't matter. The stories, the dark films, or the ones with the twist and the tail, they still work because the comedy hasn't dated. It isn't like, oops, I was your uncle, a wah-wah type soundtrack. It's dark. It hasn't dated. That's what I think. That's what I mean about comedy in the dark. I've noticed that comedy stays fresh the darker it is. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think it is a perfect point to finish this conversation. It's an exact synopsis of where we are.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you, John, for coming on today to discuss comedy. I hope you'll come back again some other time. Anything else you want to promote before we disappear?
No, nothing at the moment.
This is your chance.
Yeah, sorry. I'd love to whore myself, but at the moment, alas, I cannot. I have nothing at the moment.
All right, all whored out. All right,
John.
Out,
exactly.
Thanks very much, and thank you to everybody. You'll find us on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, and anywhere else you can get your podcasts. Some 5 stars, and we'll see you again. Goodbye.